Hi, ladies.
Good morning, Liz. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
We're doing great.
Good. I like your background.
Thank you.
Oh, Stephanie, you're all dressed up for this. I love it.
So, Liz, I was
Checking
just
out the muddy boots.
sharing with Stephanie that we'll be kind of doing what we talked about. So, I'll give a little bit of an overview before we start things rolling. Okay.
Great.
We'll give us a few more minutes to get started. Well, welcome everyone to Girls Steam Ahead. My name is Dr. Megan Federer, and I'm with the Works Ohio Center for History, Art, and Technology, and I get to moderate this fantastic panel this morning. So if you're not familiar with what Girls Steam Ahead will be for the next 6 weeks, we'll be talking STEAM on Wednesdays with some incredible women from our community. They're going to be professional engineers, digital designers, research scientists, and more. Today, of course, I'm going to be excited to introduce you to 3 women who are leading the way in the field of technology and all the work that they're doing. This program is sponsored by some of the Works fantastic partners in STEM education. Facebook, the Heath Newark Licking County Port Authority, and Park National Bank have all been wonderful partners in the support of our efforts in STEM education. So we definitely send our thanks to our sponsors. The women here that are joining me, Stephanie Boyce, Gina Dunham, and Liz Morrison, are all representing different facets of working for a technological giant, Facebook. And they each have unique stories to share about their experiences along the way. And I'm so excited to get to know all of you better. And I'm going to go ahead and take my screen off now so we can spend a little bit more time with our panelists. And we're going to take a look at our members here. So Stephanie, you're the construction project engineer with Facebook's New Albany Data Center. And in fact, all of our panelists here are from the New Albany site, but we're going to go ahead and start with you if you'd like to give us just a little bit of an introduction to yourself and what you do with Facebook, and then we'll just keep moving through.
Sure. Hi, I'm Stephanie, as she said. I am born and raised right here in the Columbus area. I went to Gahanna Lincoln High School, graduated from there. I graduated from Bowling Green State University with my degree in construction management, and then I entered into the construction industry. Worked for a few different general contractors at that time, worked all over the world doing construction. And then after we've settled back here in the Columbus area, I worked for a general contractor here for a while, and then I've transitioned over to Facebook. I've been with Facebook about 2 years. I am the construction project engineer here on site, building our world-class data centers. And I am ultimately responsible for the health and safety of our workers, the quality of our construction, the delivery schedule, and the cost to complete our work. So that's what I do.
Sounds like a lot. Excellent. So next up, we have Gina Dunham, our facility support manager. If you would like to tell us a little bit about yourself too.
Sure. Thanks, Megan. Hi, everyone. So glad to be talking with you all today. My name is Gina, and so I actually have a background in civil engineering. So I actually wanted to be a bridge engineer when I first started out. Loved building structures, building buildings, loved my Legos. So went to school to do that at MIT, got a degree in civil engineering, had a few internships along the way, learned I loved being out in the field more than designing on paper. I loved being outside and constructing things. So pivoted a little bit and went into construction management, and I got a master's degree from the University of California, Berkeley. Had a couple of different jobs along the way in construction management and some other hardware manufacturing, and ended up at Facebook about 6 years ago when this data center business was just sort of getting started. I started off working at headquarters in Menlo Park, California, and have been out here in Central Ohio for about 2.5 years. And I'm part of the team here that we call the facility operations team, and we keep the data center humming. So every time you post a picture to Instagram or Facebook, we keep the servers running that store that information. So super cool business to be in, and I'm really excited to talk with you guys more.
Thank you, Gina. That was really exciting. And I don't know if you're familiar with some of the other programs that the Works does, but one of the things that you mentioned triggered my interest because one of the challenges, design challenges that we do for STEMfest is actually a bridge design challenge.
Oh, cool.
A lot of middle schoolers and high schoolers participate in designing and building bridges and then testing them at STEMfest. So now we have a new export that we can reach out to for good feedback.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Liz, you're going to be our final representative from Facebook. You're the site coordinator with the New Albany Data Center. Tell us about what that is.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I've been at Facebook for the past 2 years. I am actually a graduate of Denison University, so right in the backyard of the works. Love the Licking County area. And I was a religion and sociology, anthropology double major. So I'm sure now everyone's like, what? That's not in the STEAM professions. But what I'm here to tell you is you can, major and focus in whatever you are interested in and passionate about, and still find a way to working for an organization like Facebook. I actually get to focus more on the people within our building and outside of our building. So, my background is actually in nonprofit and higher education. I worked at places like Junior Achievement of Chicago, Texas A&M University, and then actually back at Denison University, where I made relationships with people and helped connect people's passions to what they were doing. So my work as a site coordinator is really to help build the culture on the Facebook campus, make sure that everyone has the tools and the resources that they need to do their job, and also are super excited to come to work every day or sit in your office right now virtually, but still be connected to each other. Something that's so great about I think large technology companies, and like Facebook especially, is the focus on culture and really making sure that people feel engaged with the work they're doing and to each other. And I get to help make that possible, and then work with other great people within the Facebook team to also work with organizations like the Works and others to be good neighbors and to make sure that we're helping support some wonderful activities that are happening around Licking County as well.
I can tell that you really love your job. Well, one of the things that you said that I really appreciate is that the focus that you can be in a STEM or STEAM field and not necessarily have thought that that's where you were going to end up. And then at the Works, we think that's a really important thing for us to recognize, that STEM isn't just about the science or the engineering that we're working with. In this case, a lot of us work with technology here, but it's also about how you do that, the process that you're using to tackle problems, the innovative solutions that you work through. And so we have always approached it as it's more the way that you approach a problem, the strategies that you use to engage youth and teachers and parents and families. So thank you for sharing that perspective, Liz, because I think that's really important for us to remember. So thank you so much for all of you for joining us, ladies. I do have many questions that I would love to ask to learn more about Facebook, but also technology in general and working with in that field. But I also do want to encourage all of our guests here with us today, whether you're a student, teacher, industry partner, whether you're 0 to 99, I want to hear questions from you as well, and encourage you to enter those in the chat box throughout our session. If I catch them, I can ask them during the session, but also we will have time for Q&A from our audience at the end. So feel free to submit those at any time. And we'll just go ahead and dive in and learn a little bit about your stories, because we're really excited to share that passion with everyone. So perhaps maybe more focusing with Stephanie or Gina right now with your specific background. How did you know that technology was your passion, that you kind of started being really interested in a technological field? And that's a very broad definition. How did you kind of know that that's where you were going to end up? And either one of you, if you want to take that.
Gina, you want to go first?
Why don't you go first, Stephanie?
Okay.
I'd love to hear your story.
So I didn't know until I was in my 30s. I started out when I was maybe 3 or 4 thinking that I wanted to be an architect. And I thought that all the way up until it was time for college. Went to school as a civil engineering major, didn't like it. Changed to construction management because I like to see and touch. And then worked for general contractors until I realized that Facebook does have opportunities for people besides, computer programmers or coders or things like that. So I was in my 30s.
Yeah, well, Stephanie, I recognize that initial desire to be an architect. I too started off like that, and then I realized I can't draw, so let me switch to designing things instead of drawing them. But I first became interested, I think, in technology when I realized when I was in school, I was naturally drawn to the types of problem solving that were presented in my math classes. I just found that to be like fun, and like I would do like brain teasers and math problems like for fun. Um, and so I knew that that was where my natural passion lied. And so I was able to seek out more and more opportunities along those lines. And I think maybe similar to some of the programs here that Central Ohio is offering to our middle school students. I'm originally from Massachusetts, and I participated in a program we called WISE, which stood for Women in Science and Engineering, which I had an opportunity to go to the local college, tour their engineering facilities. Then I actually went to engineering summer camp in middle school, which sounds nerdy, but it was awesome. Built my own robots, and just got a better understanding of what really engineering is. It's not scary. It's a fun way to solve really cool problems. And I just had loads of fun along the way, and I just kind of kept taking the next step on that path until I found myself studying it in college.
That was so really interesting to be able to hear two completely different paths that really led you to, the same point in your careers. So that's really wonderful to know that you don't have to have an idea of what you're going to do right now, right? You can change that journey, but you also can have a lot of interests. Gina, you mentioned several experiences that really sparked you along the way, and you knew that you were interested in technology engineering, but never necessarily how that was going to really end up. Very cool. Was there, for either of you, was there an influence in maybe a teacher or an experience that really influenced you in exploring the career path that you took? So, knowing that working might have be more than technology and coding and computers, for example, Stephanie, or kind of helping you focus your interests, Gina?
So for me, I always knew that I was interested in building things, whatever those things may be. Just like Gina, I always took things apart. I played with them. I wanted to see how things went together. I love IKEA furniture. Building IKEA furniture is fun for me. But I was one of those kids that if someone told me I couldn't do it, I was bound and determined that that was going to be the next thing I was going to do. And I had someone that told me that being a woman going into construction was not going to be easy and I should avoid it. So therefore, what's the first thing I did? I went into construction. So that's how I got there.
I really like that you tackled that challenge head on right there. Now we do have a question that I would like to address because it fits with where I was going next. This is coming from our Southwest Licking students from Southwest Licking Middle School, I believe. And that is, what is your favorite part about your job? That's for anybody up there. Liz, I see you smiling too.
This is a great, I feel like this is like an interview question. Like we ask this all the time in interview. And it's a great one. And I really think that, so I'll give the more truthful answer, and then I'll give one that's probably more directed towards the actual question. So obviously it's the people that are really the most wonderful part about doing any job. Is about working with super smart, super capable, super ambitious people like Stephanie and Liz that we have here. It's just a small sampling of folks. We have lots of other people like that at Facebook, and Facebook, it gets to attract the most talented people around. But I know what the question's asking for, and like, do I get to do like calculus during my job every day? No, but I love that my job presents a new and unique problem every single day, and I get to use my background in thinking through systems and problem solving and things like that to get to solve different problems in different creative ways every day. So I'd say that's my favorite thing I get to do in my job.
Stephanie or Liz?
Liz, you want to go?
Sure, I'll tag on to what Gina was saying. I think Gina raises such a good point, right? And something that, as I had mentioned, I graduated from Denison. And what I love about my liberal arts education is that it was about, complex problems, right? And it was about how to communicate across different audiences. So we have a bunch of different teams on site, and it's a fun puzzle to figure out how to make sure we communicate it in a way that everyone and all the teams can understand, and understand how that affects their work too, right? So Stephanie will learn something about the construction process and need to communicate it to my team and Gina's team, right? And actually make it understandable for us who maybe don't have the background in construction management. But also then we are able to internalize what does that mean for our specific teams as we're moving forward. So I think there is that problem solving and that communication piece. For me personally, what I love about my job is that at so many other organizations, my job is the add-on or the addition to someone else's job. So they're, doing their own role, and then they're also told, oh, let's make sure that people are happy and let's make sure that people have the resources that they need to do their jobs well. I actually, day in and day out, my job is to talk with people and get to know them and learn what makes them tick and how I can better support them. So if I spend my whole day walking around the data center interacting with people and not sitting at my desk, I'm actually doing my job really well. And for me, that's something that I never, if you had told me sitting at Denison, I could be working for Facebook in Central Ohio, I wouldn't have believed it. And that, when this job came around, I was like, this job is the Liz Morrison job. It's what I should be doing.
So for me, my favorite part has to be the opportunity for continuous growth. I absolutely believe in always improving. You're never to the top until the end. I mean, the opportunities for feedback and growth here are absolutely amazing. Learning something new every day, finding a way to better yourself or to learn something or get better at something is just, it's my favorite part about being here.
Wonderful. So I want to circle back to one of the statements that we made a little bit earlier about challenges that you faced on your path, whether they were early on or things that led you actually to your current position. But challenges, and specifically maybe ones that you really had to struggle to overcome, or it was unexpected. Maybe it was a challenge that you faced being a woman in a STEM field, or maybe it was just something really unique to a position. But sharing some of the challenges that we face as we move through a path to our career and to Liz Morrison's dream job, maybe can provide some insight into what it is that we do face as we move through a progression of education and into career choices.
So I'll start with this one. So when I was in high school, I took the AP Physics class. I wish I could see the audience, right? Because I would ask for like hands to be raised, like how many women are in your AP Physics class? I'm gonna guess like no more than 5. And to be one of the very few female students in a class like that, it's the course content itself is very difficult, and then not always having a friend to study with or to ask questions to can be even more alienating. And I had a teacher who I found out was rooting against me to become valedictorian of my class. So it was a tight race between me and another person, and my teacher was rooting for the other student who was a man. So I found that to be really disheartening, like I'm just as smart, I'm doing just as much work, I deserve this, and I ended up being valedictorian. Great. And I think that just affirmed to me that even despite what preconceptions people might have or what they might expect of you, if you work hard and kind of have a vision of where you want to go and what you want to do, you can accomplish those things along the way. So I ended up graduating and then going on to MIT, which, by the way, MIT is a 50-50 ratio between men and women. I don't think a whole lot of people know that, which is really, really impressive for an engineering school. And it was a much different playing field once I got there.
What a wonderful story of staying true to yourself too, and knowing what you can achieve. So that was wonderful.
So for me, I would say Gina's absolutely right. I was the only female in my college graduating class for construction management, both for my undergrad and for my master's. So it is kind of alienating, but at the same time, if you have the right support system, they mean everything. Having those people there is everything you need. I mean, I was lucky that the man I ended up marrying was actually in my graduating class, so he was there to support me the whole way. But for me, the hardest part, I would say, is when you're first entering your career. You're not only young, but you're also female. So you've got both of those things that are not necessarily, I guess, conducive to asserting your knowledge and for people to know that you know what you're saying.
I think for me, the most interesting piece of, and it's weird to say career because I don't feel like I've been that long in my career, but apparently I have. But for me, I think the interesting thing is that it's not a path, and it's not one straight path. There are lots of hills and detours and changes. And I think when I was in high school and college, I thought it had to be this linear path. And the best thing that I was best piece of advice I was given is be open to opportunities. And I think that's the only reason why I'm now here at Facebook. When I graduated, I was only making a choice for myself. I was on a path in Chicago, and I was really enjoying it. And then some personal life things happened, and my husband got a job in Texas. And so we decided we were going to move from downtown Chicago to a small town in Texas. And that's a big change. And I had just gotten a promotion at my job, but it was the right thing for us to do as a family. And we talked through it and decided to do that. I was born in the Chicago area. So I go to rural Texas, and I started working for the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. I knew nothing about any type of animal farm, any sort of thing like that. But my thought process was, I'd love to learn if you'll teach me. And so I had some, older farmers that were from A&M who didn't necessarily think that this young woman from Chicago would care at all. But I said, teach me, and they did. And so I learned a little bit about that. And I think I truly benefited from that when I moved to Facebook, because I don't know that much about data centers. I don't know that much about what our teams do, but I've said, hey, can you teach me? And I want to learn. And I think that attitude has provided some good connections for me. And then people start to trust me and want to involve me as well.
Yeah, what a great piece of advice to just take advantage of the opportunities that are presented too. Were there others that pieces of advice maybe that really stuck out to you? One of the questions that we have from one of our students is, what the best piece of advice that you've ever been told? So we know, take advantage of an opportunity. Other advice?
Oh, mine was absolutely the first day I started at Facebook. They say assume positive intent, always. Always assuming that people are coming with a positive intent changes the perspective of everything. Just the way you react, the way that you perceive it, and then the feedback you give to people.
Great advice.
I have another piece of advice that I was given that I'm still struggling with. I'll be very, very honest, but it's about being present. And it's about, when you're at work and you're talking with colleagues and you're in meetings, focus on them. It's really hard nowadays, right? I mean, I have two of these sitting on my desk right here. I have a computer, a portal, and a screen, right? Like it's hard, and especially right now in our virtual world, but it's hard sometimes to really give that focus to your colleagues in your meetings and your work. But it's so valuable and it's so important because, one, it helps you build those relationships, but also I think it cuts down on the confusion or the back and forth, and you can actually get things done faster and then be able to go and enjoy something else. But like I said, I'm still struggling with it. I am not always the best at it, but I think it's good advice that I try and remember more every day.
Gina, I want to give you a chance to share if you'd like, but you also raised an interesting point about challenges that we're facing too. Was there a piece of advice that you wanted to share?
So I was trying to think through the most useful piece of advice that maybe I could share with the audience and where they are right now. And so I would have to say that, like, reading everything was a good piece of advice that I got, to explore what's out there. I know people take in information in different ways. We have lots of different media channels now. There's phones and podcasts and TV and all that. I just voraciously love to read anything and everything I can get my hands on, and it just expands my worldview and the opportunities I see exponentially. So that's the I think piece of advice I would want to pass on.
Wonderful. Now, Liz, you mentioned some of the challenges specifically that we're facing, and we might be remiss if we don't recognize that being in a virtual landscape right now for everything, often in our organizations, that is a challenge that probably overshadows everything else. But what are some challenges that you are each facing, maybe specifically within your organization or within your positions, like things that you're working on, challenges that you are actually trying to solve, as well as dealing with the challenges of day-to-day life right now?
I think, yeah, I mean, so COVID, right? Like,
Yep.
elephant in the room. We're all dealing with, and for students, I can't imagine, right, how hard it was last spring to sort of just all of a sudden be cut off from the normal world and schedule. And now it's looking strange as well, I know, as we're starting in the fall. So I think, and we're all experiencing similar things at Facebook, right? One day we're in the office and the next day we're told go home and we'll probably be back in 2 weeks. And here we are 7 months later. And so I think, you know, it's being agile, right? And I think students are learning that through this situation right now. And I think we'll be able to pull from that experience as you think about it. You know, I think personally in my role, one of the things that we struggle with is we have data centers across the country and across the world. And they're, you know, every data center is different, but there's also that thread that is Facebook. And so how do we provide some consistency across the data centers while also maintaining the special flair that is our data center in Central Ohio? And so I think for my team, it's just thinking about what's important to maintain consistency and what's important to keep that individuality. And again, it's like a complex puzzle, and it's figuring out and it's talking to the different teams on site, but all of our team members travel too. So another thing is we always hear, well, they used to travel, I guess, hopefully we'll get back to traveling, but we always will hear, right? I went to our data center in New Mexico and this is the feeling that I got there. I want to bring that back here. And so trying to think about how we do that while also maintaining that Central Ohio flair that we have.
So those are some great concepts, and I do want to make sure that we pitch it over to some of the questions that are being asked in the chat box as we do wrap up a little bit here today. First one being, what does it mean to be a woman in STEM to you? Maybe just a one sentence response there of what does it mean to you to be a woman in STEM? Stephanie, why don't we start with you?
That's a hard question. I guess for me, it is being the leader for other women, for them to be able to see that you can go where you want to go.
Yeah, that resonates a lot with what we've said earlier about having that network to, whether it's in AP Physics or in a workplace setting, but having somebody there that you can almost identify with as part of it. Gina, you look like you wanted to share a response too.
Yeah, to me, being a woman in STEM means being true to myself and my passions and pursuing the things that really matter to me, making an impact on the world.
Yeah. Great connection too there, because one of the things that we find that's so important is it's not just about, the actual project that you're working on and the minute details, but really understanding what that broader impact is. So much of what we do is not isolated within just a simple box or analysis. It's much, much bigger than that, especially when you work for a company that has that global reach, right? Another question that we have there is kind of going back to our conversation about advice, but if you could give your younger self, one piece of advice about your future, what would that be? Liz, let's start with you. You can't be let off the hook completely.
I think it would be that it will work out, and to enjoy what I'm doing in the current moment and not worry too much about the future. I think for me, I was always worried about what's going to happen next, right? In high school, it was where am I going to go to college? And then in college, it was going to be what job am I going to have? And then in that job, it was what's my next step? And I think, and I will say, for the first time after taking the job at Facebook, I've stopped doing that, because I have found, kind of my niche and my passion. But it's also really allowed me to, I think, focus on my current role and develop that really strongly, and know that if you just keep working and you find, something that you're excited about, you will find your path at that time. It may change, and that's okay. And that I'll be okay.
I think we can all use that advice, definitely. Another question, what is the hardest part of being a woman in STEAM, and what advice do you have to be successful? So maybe what is the hardest part? That kind of goes along with one that I had that I haven't asked yet, but hardest part, what about a time that you completely and utterly failed at your job and how you learned from it too, in your path? So that hardest part, or learning from failure, could be some interesting stories, I think.
For me, I would say that there were a lot of missed opportunities. I failed at seeing the opportunity in front of me and speaking up when the time was right. Not for me, I was afraid to speak up being the only woman in the room. Afraid that my opinion maybe wasn't as valued, even though it really was. So just having that bold and I guess confidence to go for it and speak up for yourself and advocate for you is what I learned.
Yeah, Stephanie, I wish you could have told me that a couple of years ago when I was facing something where I was leading a new project, and we had more senior people in the room, and someone questioned why I was at the table, asked what are you doing here? And that really was hard, because it made me feel like, I don't know if you guys have talked about like the imposter syndrome at all, like you don't deserve to be there, right? You don't have enough qualifications. You're not smart enough to be there. And this person made all those fears seem like they were coming true. And I wish that I had a little bit more confidence in myself, like you said, Stephanie, to just say, no, I do deserve to be here. I'm here for a reason, and I'm here to do a job, and I'm looking forward to working with you. Instead, I just sort of slithered out of the room and felt really defeated after that.
I think that I think adding to that, and on something that Stephanie and Gina both said, I think especially as women in the field, you need to bond together. And one thing that I was worried about when I joined Facebook, so I worked in a more female dominated track in previous jobs. And so when I joined Facebook and there weren't as many women, I was a little intimidated that we might all be trying to sort of compete with each other, because maybe there's those concerns about how many women are in the room. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And the two women on the screen are some of my biggest supporters. And, I think that we all, as the women on site, have really bonded together to help elevate the voices that we have, as well as deal with other things, right? When the coronavirus hit, the three of us all have children, and it's been a very interesting time to figure out how to work and be mom and balance all of that. And so we're supportive of each other. But I feel like I came in thinking there could be sort of some competition, and realized very quickly that I think, especially because Gina and Stephanie have expressed they maybe didn't necessarily have that female support in other roles, we've realized how valuable and important that is.
Definitely. And I think that that raises a really interesting point for maybe an angle of advice that we haven't talked about yet, which is, what is your best advice for how you balance your life and your career? Because I think that those are both, you're laughing over there, Liz. I think those are both important things to remember, is that a career and your passion for work is still just going to be one part of you as you grow, and your family, whatever that looks like, is also going to be an important part. I don't know about either of you, Stephanie or Gina, but I know that Liz and I have kids that are very similar age, and having young kids and balancing that with work is a challenge in and of itself, let alone when you add other factors in play. So maybe going back to that, brief statement of advice of how do you balance life with work?
I'm laughing. Yeah, I'm laughing because I literally put 2 boxes in front of my office door so that my dog and my kids couldn't bust in during this panel. And so, I think, and in my opinion, in my advice, or just how I think about it, is it doesn't always have to be a perfect balance. And it isn't usually. And I think if you let go of the concern that it's supposed to be, I think it's a little bit more freeing. There are days that I'm rocking at my job, and then there are days that, I haven't seen my kids very much. And then there are days where I'm a mom and the meeting that I was supposed to go to has to wait. And I'm fortunate that I work for an organization that's very supportive of that. And so I guess a piece of advice would be, your life will go up and down and ebb and flow in different areas. And you might be in a role where your career is the most important thing for you at the time, and that's great. And if that changes and you decide to start a family, or you want to travel, or you want to do some sort of fun sport thing, I think then you just have to take account of where are you, and are they supportive of that, and can you talk through that? Never be afraid to ask, and put what's needed first. And I think the other thing that I will say is I'm fortunate that I have a very supportive partner, and he has taken on the primary parenting right now so that I can be focused on my job. And that was a conversation that we had, and I wasn't scared to ask, but I think it's really valuable to make sure that you at least have those conversations as you're thinking about who you might be spending your time with.
So Gina's our newest mom, so I'll let her go next.
Yeah, I became a mom about 10 months ago to a beautiful baby girl. Best thing that's ever happened to me. And Liz and Stephanie were really great in walking with me as I made this transition to momhood. And Facebook is really, really supportive of parents, which I appreciate. But I also think that I try to think of it, it's not either or. Like, I'm not neither just a mom or just a worker. Like, I bring both aspects to every part of my life. And I really actually love sharing with my daughter, like letting her see that like mommy has a job and she's like doing this cool stuff and she's like respected, and showing her that like you don't have to choose just having a family or having a career, that it's you can do both. I'll echo Liz, and like they're not always in like perfect balance. Sometimes one of them has to be raised more than the other, and that's okay. I think that that's totally fine to work through. And I also have a very supportive partner, which has made a world of difference. But I would not. I've actually thought about this. Like, would I want to to give up my career to be a stay-at-home mom? And the answer is no. It's too important to me to demonstrate to my daughter, that it's okay to pursue her passion and pursue what's important to her and still have a family. That's totally doable nowadays.
I think Gina pretty much captured what I would say as well. My daughter is 8, and it is the most important thing in the world to me for her to know that she can do anything she wants to do. And by modeling that, I think that she's getting way more from it than me just saying it. So
Yes. Well, we are almost out of time, so I do want to make sure that I get to our last question that I see on the Q&A. And please, if you do have others, feel free to submit them. But one is about the future career goals. So if you have goals at Facebook or in 50 years, but like what's a nutshell of a future career goal for you? Let's stick with you, Steph. Let's see if we can come up with it.
You had asked about personal challenges, and I would say very honestly, this is mine, is trying to decide where I want to go and what I want to do. There's so many options out there that deciding what that one choice is that's going to make me truly happy is difficult.
Liz would say be open to opportunities.
Right, exactly. And it's not a linear path. You have to follow the opportunity that's right at the time. I would say leading my own construction site, being the one in charge of that. So,
okay. Gina, what about you?
So I love 2 things. One is getting to do this and speak with young people today and inspiring them to pursue careers and their interests in science and technology. So I would love to continue to do that. And also like Stephanie, like went into this business because I love seeing what I build, right? So if I were to look back at my life 50 years from now, I want to point to something that I did, that I built, that I made an impact on. So my future career goal here at Facebook is to become part of a more senior executive leadership team that points or makes the direction of what Facebook is going to do in the next 10, 20, 30 years, what that's going to look like. I want to be part of those decisions.
So one last question that I just have is more open-ended. Is there anything else that you think that we have missed in our conversation today about being a woman in technology, a woman at Facebook, that we're leaving out, that you really think needs to be addressed for girls who might be interested in following a career path similar to yours?
I think that we should recognize our male allies, having the support system, not just from your females, but also your male allies is super important, and knowing where you can turn to for help. I mean, I know that we have 1 or 2 on the phone or on the line listening in as well, just here to support us.
Absolutely. And really, it is about any youth that wants to enter within a STEM or technological field, specifically for this talk, recognizing that there are experiences that you've shared and through your stories that have really helped contribute to your success along that path. So to wrap up, I do just want to just say thank you to our panelists here. So thank you again. It's all the time we do have for today, but thank you for joining us. We can't wait to see you next week. We do have another Girls Team Ahead session next week on October 21st at 11 a.m. and that will be for our Women in Engineering program. So we hope that you can join us there as well. If you have questions that you'd like to have answered still, you can submit them in the chat box and we will try to get them to our panelists, and we can always provide that back out to our registrants as well. If you want to share this too, you're able to share our program with your community. We'll have it posted on the Works YouTube channel at a later date, so you'll be able to continue to connect with us and learn more. So again, ladies, thank you so much for joining us, and for all of our participants, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week for another Girls Team Ahead. And one of our participants would like to ask one final question. If you would stay in your job, is this a job that you would want to keep for the rest of your career? Would you like it to change and grow? Any last thoughts there?
Oh, you got to keep it growing.
Got to keep it
You gotta
growing.
keep doing different stuff. You can't keep doing the same things over and over again. And that's the beauty of working in technology, and that technology is always changing. And so it keeps your job new and interesting.
That's exactly why I wanted to fit that last question is, because we wanted to really emphasize how much you can, change and grow. So thank you so much again, everyone. We will see you next time for Girls Steam Ahead Engineering.
Thanks, Megan. Bye, guys.
Take care.